Hey everybody, and welcome to Viper Magic's channel. I am Brent Casina, and me and Jim are best buds, and from time to time, we'll hop over on each other's channels to do a review of something. My channel is comic books, Jim's is video games, so we're here to talk about video games, and specifically, The Last of Us Part 2. Now, this game came out last Friday, so almost a week ago. I've been playing it, not really, non-stop, I guess is the term. Any free time I have, I'm playing this game, and I just finished it, and I wanted to talk about it. Jim's been hounding me, because I beat this before him, and this is a spoiler review anyway. If you don't want to know any spoilers, don't watch this. Go play the game, or read some non-spoiler reviews that are out there. But Jim's been hounding me, saying, don't rush it, or whatever, and I'm like, this is how I play games. Like, if I get a new game, I'm going to play it, and I'm going to play it every free chance I have, unless I specifically have something I want to do more than that other thing. In this case, I wanted to play The Last of Us Part 2 when it came out, because I didn't want to miss the boat or miss the conversation, I guess, per se. I have, not played a bunch of PlayStation games until this last year and a half. Like the exclusives specifically, normally I have an Xbox. I've had an Xbox for, 10 years or so. So that's where I play most of my games. So I haven't played a bunch of PlayStation exclusives. So when the Spider-Man game came out last year, I was like, I gotta get on my hands on that game. And then I got God of War, or was that 2 years ago? Anyway. So then I played all the Uncharted games, finally, the remaster, and then I played Uncharted 4, I think like a month ago. And then here we are with Last of Us Part 2. So I just watched my video review of The Last of Us Part 1, the remaster. And Jim was teasing me earlier today saying, you shat all over The Last of Us Part 1. I did not shit all over The Last of Us Part 1. I said, this is a very, very good game. I just didn't like a few things, and I spent 7 minutes focusing on those few things instead of, talking about more of the things that I did like. I think that's, a weakness in me, I guess, to talk about negative more than positive. So, I will try to be more mindful of that here in this spoiler review. So, let's talk about what The Last of Us Part 2 is. It is a sequel to one of the most heralded games of all time, The Last of Us. There's no Part 1, at the time, it's just The Last of Us. Came out on PS3, got remastered on PS4, you can go play it. It's a good game, it's a great game. I think it does have some flaws. Compared to other games out there, it is very slow. And I think it's different in that way because Naughty Dog is more focused on storytelling all the time versus gameplay. And it's specifically in these Last of Us games, it's all about storytelling. They want to tell you a story and make you feel emotion through the game. And they accomplish that both times. And I mentioned that in my first review of the first game, and I will admit it here. They make me feel emotion. There was a lot of times in this game after not after the first half, but, from whenever you get to the main area, when you get to Seattle, I was on the edge of my seat. I was leaning forwards. I played a lot of the second half of this game last night. I think I played an hour and a half today and finished it. But last night, I could have gone on. I finished at 12:30 last night, and I was like, I need to go to bed because I get to an area and I get to Santa Barbara, and I was like, if I play this anymore, I'm gonna have to finish it. So I didn't want to do that, so I stopped, right? But I had the whole, spoilers. I'm gonna go into spoilers now. So if you haven't played the game, go somewhere else, and come back later for sure. But I finished the first fight between Ellie and Abby. And I was like, man, that was so good. And I was like, how do you finish that game up afterwards? So I played it a little bit. You had the whole thing with Ellie and Dina. And then the whole time I was like, well, this is a cool epilogue. And then it was like, is this it? Because this is a cool epilogue. And then Tommy shows up. And then it's like, oh, man, you're not going to do this, are you, Ellie? And then Ellie wakes up in the middle of the night. Yeah, you have to get up, you go to the window. I'm like, don't jump out the window. Don't jump out the window. She shuts the window. I breathed a sigh of relief. Oh, man, thank God, Ellie. Don't mess this up. You have a home, you have a wife, girlfriend, whatever you want to call her, you have a baby you're taking care of that, you can raise to be your son if that's what you want. You've got it safe. You're safe. You're home. Like, the just I don't know. Naughty Dog did a really good job in this game investing me in both sets of characters. I felt for Ellie in not so much the first half because you'd kind of played not as her but with her during the first game. You were kind of attached to Joel, so when he died, I think a lot of people were shocked. I wanted to see when the leaks came out. I wanted to see what the big deal was. So maybe I'd ruin this game a little bit by spoiling for myself. I didn't see everything. All I saw when I saw the leaks was Joel dies, and then you play as Ellie, and then you have to go hunt down his killer, and then somehow you switch, and then you have to go hunt Ellie. And that's I heard that, and I was like, okay, cool. That's the point of the game. Cool, interesting. I don't want to know all the little individual beats, and I don't know how much of that was spoiled. Or leaked or whatever, so I didn't pay attention to that. I was just like, what's the game about? And that's what the game is about. Why they were so secretive behind this game, I don't know why. I wonder what the embargo stuff they couldn't talk about was. Like, you can't talk about anything about Abby whatsoever, or Joel dying, or playing anything past the first half of the game. Like the locations and stuff. It's bizarre, but I guess they want to keep that a secret. So Naughty Dog's really striving to tell you this story, and they wanted you to experience it. But I will commend them. They did a great job making me feel attached to Ellie and Dina and Tommy, Joel's brother, and forget the other guy's name. He comes and surprises the Asian guy. I really got attached to them. I thought they were cooler than Ellie. I liked them a lot more than I liked Ellie at times. So when you get to the middle of the game and, that guy dies right in front of you, I gasped. I was like, oh, and then it was a cliffhanger, and then now you got to play as Abby, who up until that point was a monster to you. And then they did a really good job of making Abby sympathetic, I thought. You got to meet her extended family, even though it was all the people that were there that when you killed Joel. But, you got to remember that this was a world where people do terrible things, and that's one of the things that I love reading The Walking Dead for, the comic book series. I haven't watched the show in many seasons, but the comic book series does a great job in just kind of laying flat, hey, there are good people and there are evil people in this world, but the good people are not necessarily blameless or sinless. They've all done terrible things. It's just what level of terrible are you at in this world? And I think Ellie kind of surpassed Abby in her level of terrible, at least from what we saw in this game. Apparently Abby was a torturer and stuff for Isaac, so maybe she's a little bit more terrible, maybe got some of what she deserves if you look at it from a purely moralistic level. But in terms of what was shown in the game, I think Ellie was the more deserving of death, per se, or punishment, than Abby. Abby went with a mission. She was getting revenge for her dad. She killed Joel and she left. That was it. She let Ellie live, and they didn't go and wreck the town or anything like that. They were purely there for that one reason. And she left, and she was fit enough to leave it as is. How they found these people, I don't know. I don't know how you find people in post-apocalyptic America. The fact that happened twice, that they found where Abby was in Seattle and then found her in Santa Barbara, I will have no idea how they do that, but it's just a narrative jump, I guess, that you got to do, that there are ways of doing that in this world. But Ellie, after that, it goes on a freaking rampage. Kills every member of that party that showed up in Jackson to kill Joel. Every single person, no matter whoever they were. Then goes after Abby, fails, and then goes after her again after Tommy kind of goads her and makes her feel guilty because he's been maimed. He's missing an eye, I think, at the very end of the game. He's got a bum leg, and he's like, oh, I can't go after her. I thought you were a badass kind of thing. kind of guilts her into going for Joel, my brother. Um, that's my Tommy impression, but I didn't want Abby. I didn't want not Abby. I didn't want Ellie to go. I did not want her to go. You're doing all these things on the farm, and that whole time I was like, please just let her take a breath and go. I'm not gonna do it. And then she gets up, and Dina comes out. And you see her like packing the backpack, and I was like, damn it. I'm gonna have to play as Ellie and do things I don't want to do. Like, I didn't mind. I mean, I didn't want to do anything. This game is rated M for mature for a reason. It's all graphically violent. And you don't really take joy in watching the violence unfold here. And it was very violent, that's for sure. But I specifically didn't want to do anything once I saw the farm the first time. Didn't want to go after Ellie. I didn't want Ellie to go after Abby. And I didn't want her to leave Dina. I didn't want her to leave her family, her home, all that stuff. Like, I think having a family and a home, we're in it right now. I recognize the importance of that, and that, you risk a lot of things when you venture out into the world on some purely, method for revenge kind of thing, some one-man killing machine mission. And she risked all that, and all that stuff is, like, all the more important and hard to get again in that world, in that post-apocalyptic world where you're always on your toes trying to survive. I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic here in 2020. We're not really on our toes trying to survive. We're just, looking out in the grocery store for when they get in paper towels and, toilet paper. Stuff like that. You were not looking for scraps of tape and, scissors and all this other junk to kill clickers. So that was interesting. So I really do commend the story. It really did, have me on the edge of my seat, really invested in both characters. And so when the final battle came, not the final battle where you're in the theater, which was cool because they, you spent the first half of the game building Ellie up, giving her all these tools, all these weapons, all this stuff, and then when they're taken away from you and you have to start over again, you're like, oh shit. And then you're playing as Abby, who is a much more physical person than Ellie. I mean, she's like, I don't know, 6 feet tall. Ellie at this time was probably 18 or 19. Abby was probably 25, and she just worked on her arms every day, like arms and legs, arms and legs, arms and legs. Like, she was just, like, more jacked than Ronda Rousey on her best day, is kind of how I thought of her. So she was such a physical, like, opponent that it was only fair, I guess, per se, in the game way, to pit Abby against Ellie when Ellie had a fully loaded out kit and Abby had nothing. Because you had gone to the island with all the scars and stuff, which was a great scene. Great little thing, running through the horse and killing all those people, and then at the end where you're doing your thing, trying to save the brother and sister. Oh, poor kids. That relationship with the brother and sister is really what I gravitated with Abby on. Like, that's where I really started to feel for her when that happened. But it was such a cool thing to be like, oh, in that battle in the theater, to be, I gave Ellie these weapons. I gave her all these abilities. As Abby, I walked into one of those proximity mines that I loved using so much in the first half of the game. And I instantly hit my head like, oh, yes, she has mines. Like, Ellie has everything that you enabled her to have, all these different tools. And she will beat your ass if you're not careful. So you had to be extra careful to do that. Even though I didn't really want to beat the crap out of Ellie. I kind of wanted them to talk it out. But, you gotta play. You gotta do what the game wants you to do, per se. So, in the final battle, in the water, when you're playing as Ellie, you have nothing. Ellie has nothing. She's, like, on her last straw at that point. And then for Ellie to just, face Abby, who's like a shell of herself. She's thinner, she's emaciated, you can see, like, the muscle. I don't know how long she had been on that pillar strung up there, but you could see that she'd been up there a while, or been starving for a while. She was not herself, whatever that matter of months was. How I imagine it took like at least a month, 2 months and a half or something from Ellie to get from Jackson, Wyoming to Santa Barbara on her own, So I don't know. She just was like, Ellie was here, and then Abby was here, and then Ellie, when fully loaded, was back up to Abby physically. But when Ellie has nothing, you have to bring Abby down to make it a fair fight. And Ellie still has her Switchblade, of course, which I did miss the Switchblade the entire time I was playing as Abby. Fashioning those shivs, I was like, man, I just want to go up to these things and just stealth kill them with one shot with my Switchblade, which she didn't have, which seemed kind of dumb. I think that, like, everyone would be finding the biggest Bowie knife they could in this world to strap it to their leg and just bring out and stab these people, these clickers, whatever, as, easily as possible if necessary. But whatever. It's one of the things I didn't like. I think they have shivs in the first game. I'm not sure, but I probably didn't like them there either. So my complaints with the first game were most about like the crafting system. I found it to be a little hollow then. Since it was the same from the first game, I guess my criticisms are still there. But even though I know that it's not really focused on being a simulation of a Survivor world, it's more about telling a story and making you feel like you're participating in that survival in a certain way, and I think I missed that the first time. Probably because I had heard all of the praise for the first game for, 10 years or so before I played the remaster last year. So I was a little jaded, I guess, like no game can be this good kind of thing, and that's probably where a lot of my critiques came from. The hidden ammo I still think sucks. I mean hidden as in like disappearing. You'll go and attack a guy and they'll shoot as many shots as they need to kill you. So they're like having a full clip and a spare in the back, and they will shoot you as much as they need to kill you. But the minute you kill them, it's like a random roll of the die whether they actually still have ammo in their gun or not. And I thought that was a little lame. Like, in my mind, if you want to limit the ammo, which they do in these games a lot, I'm sure it's much harder on the other difficulties. If you want to limit the ammo, I think that's fine. But don't bullshit me. Like, half the guns you find in these games, there are no weapons. Or no ammo in them, whatever. Like, if it's a double-barrel shotgun, and the guy shoots at me 2 times, I might find that believable, that he's got no shots left. But picking up a revolver or a rifle and having absolutely nothing to pick up, even when I stealth killed somebody, and I was like, you literally were carrying around an empty gun? That is unbelievable in this world. That still falls flat for me, and it's still frustrating. Even though I played on moderate, the regular difficulty or whatever, and I still had a good time. I still had a tough time in many places. So that was that. So the 2 things that stood out to me in terms of gameplay-wise that were fantastic was the fight with Ellie in the theater and the fight with, I think they call it like the Rat King clicker, the very end in the basement of the hospital as Abby. The giant monstrosity thing that you'd never seen before that split off into 2, that was really fun and had me on the edge of my seat. And it took me a long time to beat that guy because I was running around crafting weapons, bullets or whatever, and then trying to find whatever was around me because I ran out. And then having that hunter thing come at you at the same time, so you had to be well aware of it. It was really cool. The graphics in this game are good. Let's just say that. I think they are deceptively great in their marketing materials because a lot of their marketing and stuff that we've seen from E3s in the past have all been focused on the cutscenes. And then you play the game and you're pulled back from that character and it looks good, but I think what they're doing is they're switching character models in and out in an instant when they go into cutscenes. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But there were certainly times where I noticed it later in the game as I was playing as Abby. You're talking to Lev or Maria, I think was his sister's name, going to get one or the other. And twirl the camera around, and they're just doing the jaw. Their jaws are just moving up and down. It's very stiff, because I think you're meant to just see them from the back of the head. Even though it's a very detailed model, it's like, the same type of model you saw in Assassin's Creed Odyssey last year, I guess, at that level of detail. Except when you zoomed into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, like, you weren't fooled into thinking this was movie quality CGI They were just like, hey, here's our model. We're doing everything in engine, in game, so it is what it is. There you have it. Whereas this game is so much about storytelling that I think they switched out the models, or maybe they turned on all the extra features in their hair and face and stuff like that to make it look that extra detailed, so that when the cutscenes played, I don't know if it was pre-rendered or in-engine, like just, cue this, cue this, cue this, and everything was happening. It was a little weird. It's that what made me think that was there was one time where Abby's arm got stuck in a T pose where it was like straight out, and I was interacting with Lev, giving him the gas mask, and my other hand was like way out here, a stiff arm, but the hand was still like doing weird things, and I was like, okay. And then when I got to the cutscene, I thought it would reset because I thought these are just pre-rendered, and then it stayed in the cutscene. My arm stayed out here. So I was like, well, something's going on because they don't look that detailed, especially at night in harsh light. If they're wet, you turn that camera around in them, it doesn't look as great as it does in cutscenes, like in the rain battle at the very end. So Naughty Dog is definitely they're not just doing one thing. I feel like they have different sets of models that they're switching in and out here, and it's very deceptive. So the game does look great in HDR on 4K. That's what I played it on my Samsung over here. The environments are very pretty. There were times, when you first got to the farm in Wyoming with the wheat field, beautiful. Seattle was very pretty to look at. Running through the Scar town on fire was breathtaking. So don't get me wrong, there are a lot of moments in this game that stand out that were wowzers. But I don't think it's fair to think that those models are that detailed all the time, the way that the game wants you to think, I guess. Or Naughty Dog is like, we're the, they get hailed as the best studio of all of them because they do these little things. I saw on Twitter that somebody was saying, like, that when Ellie took off her shirt in the theater, you saw all the scars on her back. He's like, this is the most impressive technical thing I've ever seen because it's a shirt coming off a character in-game. And then I was playing it more and I was like, is it that impressive? Because they're changing the models out or something like that. There's some witchcraft going on there. But it's very beautiful, very, very fun. It's focused on storytelling, and I think the message is like, this is what you become when you hate something or someone so bad that you refuse to see who they are or what's good about them. And I think that's what the story did by, seeing this person do something terrible to somebody you love, having you go hunt that person down, and then flipping it on its head like, 3 days later, or 3 days before, this is what this person was experiencing after they killed Joel. Feeling some guilt, getting attached to their friends, also protecting the ones they love, or protecting the innocent in the ways of these two kids' scars. So that was that. I was a little bummed we didn't get to meet the Prophet. I thought she would have definitely been a person and not a figurehead, as you saw so far. Isaac, I guess I thought maybe he'd be more prominent in that second half of the story, but he's just kind of shows up twice. And they got the actor who's going to play Commissioner Gordon in the Batman film. He was also in Casino Royale. I want to say his name is Isaac Wright. Jeffrey Wright. You got Jeffrey Wright to play Isaac, and I was like, really? You spent all that money to get him for 2 scenes? I don't know. Feels like you could have gotten a different actor, but, But, I mean, everybody does a good job here. Ellie does a great job, and that, I think, is... Oh, gosh. Can't even remember her name. The girl doing Abby does a great job. Troy Baker is in here as Joel for a little bit, doing all the cutscenes. He does a fine job. It's like, I see all these people doing... they're doing, like, this whole team, everybody from this game, plus Nolan North, are the Avengers in the Avengers game. And it's like, my only frustration is, are they the only good voice actors working? I thought there were plenty more good voice actors out there working in the video game industry. But these are our superstars, so to speak. So when our superstars give us something, we must, praise it or something like that. So... I don't know, just me being a little jaded that these guys get all the attention and all the accolades when there are other good voice actors out there doing bang up jobs as well. But kudos to them and the team and the animators behind all their facial animations, or the mocap team. I'm sure there was some of that in there as well, if not most of that. So yeah, is Last of Us Part 2 a game I think you should play? Yes, absolutely. I think this is truly the pinnacle of, I think, what the graphics on a PlayStation 4 Pro can do in terms of like the cutscenes when they switch the models out, even though it wasn't like interactive. I think it's a very good storytelling narrative that you don't see in games a lot. But it's so focused on story, and all Naughty Dog games are, at least the two Last of Us games. The Uncharted ones I think are more focused on spectacle, set piece spectacle stuff, like an action movie. But these are so focused on story that I think the gameplay sometimes isn't. It's more above average and good rather than great, right? I tried to stealth my way through most of these things, couldn't. I don't know if that was a choice on the developer, but they were going to make you kill people a lot of times. Where, a different game, maybe you'd be able to do it totally stealth. And I thought that was a little weird. It's like, give me the tools to go kill people or don't. But if you're going to make me try and do stealth, then actually make it possible for me to do stealth. And that felt a little cheap sometimes. And I don't know if that was like a limitation of, hey, we got to get you to spend as much time in this area as possible. Who knows? But I think the game suffers a little bit on the gameplay side because of that, because it doesn't allow you to actually do what you want to do. They force you into situations where you have to fight people sometimes. And then even sometimes you're like, how do I get out of this without, killing everybody? There is a way, but it's going to take you 30 minutes in an encounter to do that, where you could have like a really tense 5 to 10 minute encounter and kill everybody. So, I don't know. I think it's like, I played Splinter Cell or something, and you can sneak past all these guys if you find the right path, or just wait. And there were many times in Last of Us where I felt a little cheated because somebody would see me from way off in the distance, who I couldn't see with my listening powers or whatever. And it was like, if you're going to give me listening powers, then like, let's make it even. If I can't listen to them that far away, then maybe they shouldn't be able to see me that far away either. So it was a little frustrating too. So, I don't know. But I would give this game a 9 out of 10. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I can't fault it for everything and say like, oh, there's only a 5 or 6. Like, being on the edge of my seat a lot in this game and having those tense situations, I would give it credit. It made me feel something. And narratively, it made me feel something too. So, this is a 9 out of 10 game. This is a superb game. So, I definitely think you should go play it. If you can handle all the violence and the hate and stuff like that, because it's very rough. It's not a happy game to play, but it's going to make you feel some things, and I think that's a good thing. Kind of show you what regret looks like and what remorse looks like, and how driven to extremes, you lose something when you go there. I think that's important in today's culture, is not to be driven to extremes in any case. Kind of pull back a little bit and think more. I think we all need to do that. So, there's my review of The Last of Us Part 2. Let me know and let Jim know what you thought down below in the comments. And we will see you next time here on Viper Magic's channel. Well, see you on the other side. That's what he says. All right, bye-bye.